"Nina, get ready quickly, please." Scott hurried his wife. "We'll be late." "5 more minutes, darling," shouted the woman from the bedroom. "Why don't you tell me where we're going in such a hurry?" "I'll tell you everything on the spot," Scott said, appearing in the doorway. "I hope it's a pleasant surprise," Nina said, finally finishing her hairdo. "That's it, I'm ready." She smiled at her husband and kissed him gently on the cheek. Since the morning, Scott had intrigued her. It was their day off and Nina had planned to rest. But when she woke up, Scott informed her that they had important business to attend to. No matter how much she tried to get details from him, her husband only smiled enigmatically. Over the years of living together, Nina learned that questioning her spouse was futile. If he planned a surprise, she had to patiently wait for it. This time, however, Scott seemed visibly worried, which greatly concerned Nina. All she knew was that they had to go outside the city. The car smoothly glided along the highway, merging with the flow of traffic. Many people were heading to their country houses, since the summer was in full swing. "How long is the ride?" the woman inquired of her husband. "About 20 minutes, Scott smiled. "I'll take a nap, since you were in such a hurry that I didn't even have an opportunity to drink coffee this morning." "Sure, go ahead and sleep. I'll wake you up when we get there." Scott turned down the music, and Nina covered her eyes. Unbeknownst to her, she fell into a dream. She dreamed of some children, demanding to play ball with them. It was red and deflated for some reason. Nina obediently played it with the children, while some girls were singing a sad song. Nina could not understand the words, but the melody was familiar to her. Suddenly she woke up to a violent rumble, and she was jolted from her seat. Everything was spinning around her. There was a sharp pain in her face, as if 1,000 needles were pricking her. The pain was unbearable, and Nina screamed, trying to cover her face with her hands. The last thing Nina saw, before losing consciousness, was blood on her palms. When Nina regained consciousness, she didn't immediately realize where she was. Sunlight was bouncing off the pale blue walls, and a pleasant breeze was coming in through the window. A monotonous beeping sound came from the side. Nina tried to turn her head, but her body wouldn't respond. As she attempted to bring her hand to her face, she noticed a rope-like tube attached to her wrist. Upon closer inspection, Nina realized it was an IV tube. "I'm in the hospital," she guessed. "But why? Scott and I were going somewhere, and then... God, where is Scott?" Nina tried to sit up, but her body felt heavy, as if it was being weighed down. She attempted to call out to someone, but her lips were dry. Suddenly, the door to the ward opened, and a woman in a pale pink medical suit entered the room. Seeing that Nina was lying with her eyes open and staring at her intently, the nurse called the doctor. A few minutes later, the doctor came into the ward and sat down in a chair next to the bed. "Nina," she said calmly, "can you hear me?" Nina nodded. "Very well. Do you realize where you are?" Nina nodded again. "So, do you remember what happened?" This time, Nina tried to shake her head negatively, but her neck wouldn't turn. "Don't turn your head. There's a special corset on your neck. You can't take it off yet. You were in an accident 3 days ago and have been in the hospital since then. My name is Dr. Hodges. I'm your attending physician. For 2 days, you were in intensive care. Yesterday, you were transferred to the ward. You have a severe concussion, a fractured left arm, and multiple bruises. But the crisis is over now." "My husband," the woman whispered. "Where is he?" "I can't tell you that right now. I need to clarify." Dr. Hodges suddenly became embarrassed. "I will come to you a little later. For now, rest." What's going on? Thought Nina. I need to find out about Scott as soon as possible. Nina tried to get up again, but nothing happened. Her body was pierced by a sharp pain when she raised herself on one arm. At that moment, a nurse entered the room. Seeing that the patient was trying to get up, she immediately rushed to her. "What are you doing? You can't get up. You have to lie down for a few more days. Here you are. Drink it." The nurse handed her a bottle of water with a tube sticking out of it. Nina greedily sipped water through the tube. Once she had finished, the woman leaned back on the pillow. "Tell me the truth," she said slowly. "Where is my husband?" "To tell you the truth, I don't know. What's his full name?" The nurse was interested. Her eyes read a sincere desire to help Nina, mixed with pity. "Scott Logano," Nina said in syllables. "Frankly speaking, we don't seem to have anyone by that name in the department. He might still be in intensive care. I will check. Meanwhile, you just lie down and rest. It's better not to move at all." The nurse left the room, leaving Nina alone. Gradually, her eyes began to slip, and Nina fell asleep. She woke up to the muffled clatter of heels on the floor. Nina opened her eyes and saw Dr. Hodges in front of her. "Doctor, can you tell me how long I've been sleeping? I have no idea what time it is," Nina asked. "It's been 24 hours since we last spoke. Don't be frightened, it's normal. You're being given large doses of painkillers. These medicines make you very drowsy, but sleep is important now. Your body recovers faster." "Tell me, did you find out about my husband?" "I just came on shift. I haven't checked yet, I'm sorry." Dr. Hodges walked quickly towards the door. At that moment, the same nurse appeared in the doorway, rolling a metal gurney with lunch in front of her. "Eat is served," she announced, and the doctor left the ward. Nina's eyes lit up. "Did you find out about my husband?" "Lunch first? The chicken soup is delicious today." "Honestly, I don't feel like it," Nina stammered. "Here you are. I've poured it in a glass with a tube. Just drink it." Nina reluctantly took a sip of the broth. It was actually very good. The woman herself didn't notice how she emptied the glass. "Well done," the nurse praised. "Do you want more?" "No, thank you," Nina protested. "Tell me, is there any news?" "Nina, I don't even know if I have the right to tell you." The nurse crumpled, but finally continued. "Scott Logano died in the accident on the spot." Everything inside Nina went cold. "No," she trembled. "There must be some mistake." "Unfortunately, there is no mistake." The nurse shook her head. "I've checked everything. You were in the same car. I'm sorry for your loss." For a minute, Nina refused to take in what she was hearing. She sat motionless, not even blinking, but at some point the woman began to sob, her whole body shaking. Nina's screams were so loud that they attracted the attention of Dr. Hodges. Seeing the sobbing Nina and confused nurse, she immediately realized what had happened. Nina was given a sedative shot, and after a minute, the sobs subsided. Nina sincerely loved Scott. They lived together for a little over 10 years. Of course, during this time, various things happened, but their life was happy. And now she was alone, because a split second decided their fate. Back then, an SUV suddenly jumped from the oncoming traffic and crashed right into the driver's door of their car. Scott died on the spot. Nina was saved by her seatbelt. Their car overturned, flew over the road fence, and fell into the ditch. When Nina was finally discharged from the hospital and stepped over the threshold of her house, she was greeted with oppressive silence. The woman took off her shoes and walked on shaky legs to the bedroom. She automatically changed her clothes. Nina tried to make herself some tea, but immediately she was hit by a wave of memories of the last time she and Scott had tea together. She left the cup on the table untouched. They had no children. Nina underwent an operation in her youth, forever depriving her of the opportunity to become a mother. But Scott was always by her side, and he did everything possible so that his beloved wife did not feel inferior. Nina didn't want the child from the orphanage because it was critical for her to have a kinship with the baby. Gradually, she got used to her fate and learned to find other joys in life. She threw herself into her work. With a degree in biotechnology, she had been working for a pharmaceutical company for many years. Exhausted, Nina fell asleep on the sofa and had a strange dream again. In the dream, children demanded she play ball with them, but she couldn't because of her neck brace. One persistent girl begged Nina to take her with her, clinging tightly to her skirt. Nina tried to free herself, but the girl's fingers firmly gripped the fabric. Eventually, Nina broke free and fell into a hole, surrounded by dusty stacks of books, notebooks and children's toys. She could see her husband's handwriting on the notebook covers, but couldn't read them. And then she woke up with a shriek. "What a horror!" the woman muttered, opening her eyes and looking at the ceiling. "Why, those children again! I've seen them and that ball before." After a few minutes, Nina got up from the couch. In the morning, the apartment no longer seemed so inhospitable to her. It seemed that Scott simply went to work, leaving his wife alone. 2 weeks had passed since Nina returned home, and she was gradually recovering. She started seeing a psychologist to help her cope with the loss of her beloved. One day, her mother, Sarah, visited her, and she was overjoyed to see her daughter in relatively good spirits. "Nina," Sarah joyfully hugged her daughter, "I see the blush has returned to your cheek." "Is it noticeable?" Nina blushed and felt a bit ashamed for some reason. "Did you see a psychologist today?" "Yes, Mum. It was the 4th session. It's really helping. I never realized that a simple conversation could be so relieving. Of course, I will never forget Scott, but at least now I don't expect him to come back, or I don't flinch at the sound of footsteps outside the front door." "It's okay, daughter. Everything will work out. What you've been through is something no one should experience, but you're alive, thank God. That's the most important thing. Now you just need to find the strength to keep going." "I know, Mum." Nina clung to her mother and cried. "I don't know what to do. I try to let go, but as soon as I see his picture or his things in the closet, I get overwhelmed. I can't control myself." "Nina," Sarah said affectionately, "why don't you start going through his things? I know it hasn't been much time, but you can't torture yourself like this. He doesn't need all of it, and you don't need it either. Keep only the things that Scott truly cared about, and give away the rest. You'll feel better that way. Do you want me to help you?" "I think you're right, but I want to do it myself," Nina said after a moment of thought. "I won't start work for another week, so I think I'll begin tomorrow." "Oh, baby, you've always been like this since you were a little girl, wanting to do everything yourself. Well, I won't insist, but if I were you, I wouldn't postpone it. Trust me, you'll feel more at peace once you've sorted everything out." As promised, the next day, Nina began sorting through Scott's belongings. She started by packing all his clothes into her bag, leaving only a few t-shirts for herself. Each item brought back a flood of memories, but Nina managed to cope with her emotions. She decided to leave her husband's favourite vinyl player and collection of rare records untouched. Scott was a music lover, and he even managed to introduce Nina to his hobby. Nina decided to put frames with photos away in the storeroom, except for one that captured her and Scott on the beach in Phuket. It was a trip they took 5 years after their wedding, a time when they felt like the world belonged to them, and nothing could interfere with their happiness. Nina rarely ventured into the storeroom. This small room had once served as Scott's mini workshop for building model sailboats. Although he had abandoned the hobby years ago, many of the models remained. As Nina looked at the ships on the shelves, she gently ran her hand over their dusty sides. Aside from the model sailing ships, there were numerous other items. In one corner there were big boxes whose contents had yet to be explored. The storeroom also contained lamps, toolboxes, and various other items that Nina had never known existed. After a brief pause, Nina decided to examine the contents of the boxes. She struggled to lift the top one and brought it into the living room. It was filled with specialized literature that Scott must have studied during his time at the technical college. The second and largest box was surprisingly light compared to the first. Nina easily lifted it, assuming it was empty. Contrary to her expectations, inside were several notebooks, causing Nina to shudder. "Oh no," she whispered, "just like in that dream, but without any handwritten labels." Carefully taking the first notebook in her hand, Nina opened it. The pages were filled with Scott's familiar handwriting. At first it seemed to Nina that her husband kept here notes left from his student days. All but one of the notebooks turned out to be such. However, after reading the first entry in the remaining notebook, Nina realized that it was her late husband's diary. "I never imagined that Scott would be sentimental enough to keep diaries," she thought. "I don't even know if I have the right to read its contents. On the other hand, what if there's something interesting in them? I think I should still read them." Struggling with herself, Nina opened the notebook. The entries were numbered, totaling 33. It was unclear which period they belonged to, as there were no dates. Putting the notebook aside, Nina decided to familiarize herself with its contents later. For now, she needed to resist her curiosity and continue cleaning up. As she sorted through the remaining belongings, the living room grew noticeably darker. "Wow," she marveled, "I've been in the storeroom all day. Now I need to have dinner." After dinner, Nina settled more comfortably on the sofa and opened her notebook. Entry number 1. "I don't know why I'm writing all of this, but perhaps this diary is my only reliable confidant. I can no longer keep to myself what I've been facing lately. My name is Scott, and I'm 37 years old. I cannot complain about life. I have almost everything for happiness: a beloved wife, a great job, and faithful friends. But what happened a week ago knocked me out of my routine. No one knows about it, not even my wife Nina, from whom I used to hide nothing, but I honestly don't know how she'll feel about it. The thing is that I had a girlfriend with whom I had lived for 3 years. We were even planning to get married. However, one day Diana packed her things, and when I got home from work, all I found was a note saying she had to leave. I never saw her again. Even attempt to contact her failed. As her mother had said, Diana found happiness with another man. I had to go on living, but it was difficult. I went back to work and then I met Nina. But as it turns out, the past doesn't let go so easily. I recently received a call from an old friend of Diana's. What she said shocked me, and now I'm in a desperate situation." Entry number 2. I had to cut short the previous entry. Nina came home early and I didn't have an opportunity to finish it. I don't want to tell her yet. I don't know how she'll react. It's not a very pleasant subject for her. Anyway, I didn't expect Valerie, a friend of my ex-girlfriend's, to call me. I hadn't seen her since Diana left, which was 9 years ago, by the way. Valerie said that Diana died, and her parents had passed away a couple of years before her. She suffered greatly from the loss of her dear parents, and her health was badly affected by stress, leading to heart failure. It turns out that you can die from a heart attack at your 30s. But the worst part is something else. Diana had a daughter. The daughter was only 4 years old when she lost her mother. She never even had a father. When she was born, Diana separated from her husband because he used to abuse her, even during pregnancy. She couldn't bear it anymore, so she went to her parents, and everything seemed fine. But then they died, and she couldn't cope. Long story short, the girl was placed into the orphanage. Valerie herself had 3 young children, and they barely had enough means to live, so it was out of the question to take the girl to her family. No one would let this happen. Besides, the little girl had difficult character. After her mother's death, she withdrew into herself, was rude to adults and could even bite. She became completely uncontrollable and wild. Valerie visited her often in the orphanage, bringing new clothes, toys and sweets, but the girl became less and less responsive. Entry number 3. Once again, I had to stop yesterday. I felt that Nina will catch me with this notebook one day and cause a scene, but I just can't tell her yet. One day when the time comes, but for now, unfortunately, I can only pour out my soul on paper. So, when Valerie told me all of this, I was at a loss. I didn't understand why I had to know all of this. The child is not mine, and I haven't had any contact with her mother for a long time, but something inside me was touched. Then Valerie asked to buy the girl some things. She herself was broke. I did everything, I don't know. Probably it was a pang of compassion, a memory of old feelings. When I arrived at Valerie's house, I learned that one of her sons was ill, preventing her from going to the orphanage herself. She asked me to deliver the items myself. At that time, Nina was away on a business trip. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal to go to the countryside and deliver the items to the orphanage. As I drove, my mind began to conjure up terrible images. I imagined a grey institution with peeling paint on the walls and children dressed in worn-out clothes with empty eyes. I also pictured caretakers with sorrowful expressions. However, when I arrived at the small brick building nestled among golden maple leaves, I was pleasantly surprised. The yard was clean and well maintained, and the children, neatly dressed, were playing on a well-equipped playground. The inside of the building was even better. The rooms were well maintained and furnished with care. As I entered the principal's office, a kind woman greeted me. She introduced herself as Mrs. Sanchez and listened to me as I explained that this time, instead of Valerie, I had brought some presents for the girl. Then she asked me if I wanted to see the girl. I don't know why, but I said yes. Perhaps curiosity got the best of me, as I wanted to see what the daughter of the woman I had once loved looked like. I didn't engage in a conversation with the girl. Instead, I silently observed her playing alone in a corner with a toy. The principal sighed and remarked that the girl rarely played with the other kids. Honestly, I don't know what to do with her. Alicia needs love, but can we provide it for her? Our attempts to place her with a family have failed because as soon as she realizes that these people are strangers to her, she resists. I used to believe that 4 years old is the ideal age for a child to adapt to a new environment. After that, it becomes more difficult. But Alicia is a special case. At such a young age, her character is already formed. I didn't know what to say, but I felt an overwhelming sense of pity for this girl. Perhaps it reminded me of my own lonely days in kindergarten, where I sat alone because I didn't connect with my peers and had no friends. The teachers didn't bother to address it. They were satisfied as long as I sat silently and played without causing any trouble. I started the conversation again, asking Mrs. Sanchez if there was anything I could do to help Alicia. I mentioned that I had some money, although not much, and could periodically bring her things she needed. The principal responded, "What's the use of these things? I'm telling you, Alicia needs love, a family. We have sufficient funding, and the children lack nothing. Of course you can buy something on your own initiative, but—" I interrupted her, explaining, "You see, I want to help this little girl specifically. Her mother and I once had sincere feelings for each other, but life doesn't always go according to plan." "So you're her father, then?" the principal marvelled. "No, her mother and I split up almost 10 years ago. I haven't seen her since." "Tell me, are you married?" the principal suddenly asked. "Yes, I am married." "And do you have children?" "No, we don't have any children, and we can't have any. My wife is infertile." "Have you considered adopting a child?" I have, personally, but my wife, well, it's a very complicated situation. She wouldn't be able to take in another girl. I see. Mrs. Sanchez pondered for a moment. Something tells me that you would have been able to bond with Alicia. She is a good girl, intelligent and understanding, but not everyone is willing to accept her. It requires patience. Why don't you visit her occasionally, at least? But my wife, I don't think she would be happy about that. Please get to know Alicia first, and then bring your wife here. You can always change a woman's mind, but saving a child is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Okay, I'll think about it. Nina couldn't read any further. She was shocked to discover that her husband had been keeping something from her. It turned out that he had been deceiving her, even though the lie seemed relatively innocent. Why didn't he tell me anything? She wondered. Did he think I'd be so callous as to judge him? I should read the whole thing, in case there's an explanation. Her eyes were falling asleep. No matter how curious Nina was about what Scott had written next, she decided to sleep, so that tomorrow she could continue to uncover the mystery of her late husband with a clear head. In the morning, Nina was awakened by the intercom bell. She wasn't expecting anyone, so she didn't even get up, but the caller was persistent. The woman scowled and went to open the door. "Who's there?" she asked in a sleepy voice. "Nina, well, finally, open up. Are you asleep? It's me, Monica." Nina pressed the button and let her friend into the apartment. She had known Monica for years. They had shared all their joys and sorrows when they were students. Monica was anxious about her friend, so she felt obliged to support her in everything. "Oh, you made me to worry about you," Monica said cheerfully. "I have been calling all the morning, and there was only silence on my phone. I thought, God forbid what happened, and that's why I came straight away." "I was asleep," Nina shrugged guiltily. "I went to bed late last night, and the sound was off on my phone." Monica walked confidently into the kitchen. "So I brought you some fruit and cakes. You probably haven't eaten anything again." "Oh, stop worrying about me. And by the way, if I wanted to starve, my mum wouldn't let me do it." "Yes, your mum is a brilliant and wise woman. How are you doing?" "I can't say that I'm doing well, but I'm not doing too badly either. Yesterday I sorted out Scott's belongings. Mum said it would make things easier." "And how did it help?" "What can I say? I found something. I don't know what to think." "Something interesting?" Monica's eyes rounded. "A diary." "Oh, come on!" Monica's eyes lit up. "Have you read it already, or not?" "I started yesterday, but I fell asleep. You know, I think it says something important. I don't know how to react yet. I have to finish it. I'll tell you everything later." "Deal." Monica squinted her eyes. "Just try to hide from me if it turns out that Scott was the crown prince of some European power." Nina smiled. She liked her friend very much for her endless optimism and unobtrusiveness. It was this that had helped them communicate over the years. Always cheerful, Monica knew how to raise the mood of the interlocutor, even if she was in a critical condition. "Why don't we go shopping today? You have to go to work soon, then you won't have time. At least it'll take your mind off things." Maybe we should, Nina thought. She really wanted to go out. She hadn't been out for weeks. By evening, Nina returned home. Even though she was tired from trying to keep up with Monica, who was diving from one shop to another, the day had been fun. After shopping in the malls, they drank hot chocolate in a cosy coffee shop and chatted a bit. Nina felt a sense of relief. Of course, her wound had not healed, but now at least she could breathe more freely. She didn't feel like eating, so she made herself comfortable on the couch and turned on a TV series. It was hard for her to keep up with the plot, because thoughts of the past kept popping up in her head. Diary, Nina suddenly remembered. It's even strange that I completely forgot about it. With all this fuss in the stores, you'll forget about everything in the world. I have to continue reading it right away. Nina went to the bedroom to get a notebook and continued reading her husband's notes. Entry number 4. Today I went to see Alicia. Honestly, I had no idea how to communicate with children. I grew up alone in my family. I didn't have many childhood friends, and Nina and I don't have any children of our own. I was so scared to go meet this girl. I bought a doll. The saleswoman offered some big-headed monsters with skinny bodies and bright makeup, assuring me that all girls now play with them. But somehow I didn't believe her. No normal girl could be a fan of this stuff. I headed for the department with collectible porcelain dolls. Nina had one like that since her childhood. I thought that Alicia would like it too. And so with this doll in a box, I went to meet the little girl. She sat in the corner just like last time, singing a song. When I approached and greeted her, the girl didn't even look up. So I sat beside her and observed. At one point, she became distracted and looked directly into my eyes. "Who are you?" she asked in a serious tone. I never expected such intonation from a 4-year-old girl. "My name is Scott. And you?" "Alicia," the little girl replied sadly. "Do you want to be my daddy?" I didn't know what to say. I knew that Alicia had been through multiple adoption attempts before. She had met potential parents more than once, but I had no intention of becoming her father. So I decided to be completely honest. "No, it's just that I used to know your mum very well, and now I want to meet you. Aunt Valerie told me about you." Upon hearing familiar names, the girl perked up a bit, a sparkle appearing in her large eyes. Suddenly, she noticed a box with a doll that I was holding on my lap. "Oh, is this for me?" she asked, and I handed her the gift. "Of course. I'm not sure if you'll like the doll or not, because I'm not good at choosing. Here you go." Alicia accepted the box and carefully opened it. With delicate movements, she took out the doll. A look of admiration appeared on her face. "It's so beautiful," she exclaimed breathlessly. "Is this doll mine now?" "Do you like it? Honestly, I thought you liked cars, since you play with them all the time." "No," Alicia replied. "It's just that the other kids always take apart all the toys, and I play with what's left. But I won't give this doll to anyone." "Don't worry, it's only yours. No one will take it away." "Thank you," Alicia whispered, hugging the doll to her chest. "I guess we should give her a name." "A name?" "Yes, a name. She can't be without one, can she?" Alicia gazed at the doll's beautiful face for a long time. The small green eyes looked so real. "Nina," the girl said softly. I felt like I was being electrocuted. Nina was a common name, and it wasn't surprising that the girl chose it, but it matched my wife's name. "Call the doll whatever you like, Alicia." "I'm sorry, I have to go," I said, unable to collect my thoughts. "Are you coming back?" the little girl suddenly asked. Sure, if you like. I can come every week." "I would be happy," the little girl said quietly. We said our goodbyes and I left. I don't know what strings this child had struck inside me, but I really wanted to see her again. Nina distracted from the notebook. She was overcome by strange emotions. "I wonder," she thought. "There are no dates mentioned anywhere here. Where is this girl now? Scott mentions my business trips, but they happen quite frequently, so it's difficult to determine the timeline. Why didn't he write down the dates? Well, I have to keep reading, in case there are any details." Entry number 5. I started visiting Alicia regularly. I won't describe everything here, but I will say that over 3 months the little girl and I became very close. Saying goodbye to her became increasingly difficult each time. I could see how Alicia had grown attached to me, and I noticed tears in her eyes when I left, no matter how hard she tried to hide them. Mrs. Sanchez spoke to me today. She believes it's time to tell Nina about the baby. This woman also sees that Alicia and I have developed a bond. Honestly, I would like to adopt her, but how do I tell Nina? I think she would be furious. I vividly remember our conversation about foster children. I don't want to argue with her by bringing up an unpleasant topic, but I can no longer bear to hide Alicia. I want to play a real part in this girl's life. It brings me immense joy to see her running towards me, holding the doll Nina close to her chest, smiling and talking. The contrast with the girl I first spoke to is striking. The principal was right. This child only needs love. That's all she has ever truly had. Entry number 6. Yesterday I tried to talk to Nina about the child. It must have been so foolish of me. We were strolling around town, and I kept pointing out mothers with kids to her. I told her it would be nice to adopt a child from the orphanage. She looked at me in that way, and I was ready to disappear from the earth. Now I have no idea how to tell her about Alicia. Entry 7. We're going on vacation. I visited Alicia today and informed her that I'd be away for a while. She seemed upset, though she didn't show it outwardly. I'm starting to understand her. It's a very peculiar feeling. And then the girl asked me about my wife. Why doesn't your wife ever come with you? It's difficult to explain, baby. She is a very kind person, but she doesn't like children. What makes you say that? Mummy didn't like children. She often told me she didn't need me, and I loved her very, very much. That's not true, honey. Mummy loved you very much. Sometimes adults don't tell the truth to their loved ones. They're scared and confused, and everything around them seems strange and unnecessary. Your mum has been through a lot, so you should never doubt her love. She's watching over you right now, and she's happy to see you smile. I'm sad without her. Tears welled up in Alicia's eyes. Alicia, sadness doesn't last forever. Life is organized in such a way that the bad things fade away and the good things stay in your heart forever. Someday you will have a new mum who will love you more than anything else in the world. The important thing is to believe and wait. Why can't you take me with you? That was the question I feared the most. I didn't know how to answer in a way that the girl would understand. I had to lie to her about work. It was the stupidest decision of my life. She sensed it. I knew I was an idiot, and her trust was already shattered. So, Nina said out loud, we went on vacation about a year ago, and also 6 months ago. Before that we hadn't gone anywhere for a couple of years. That's something to consider. Entry number 8. Visited Alicia again today. It's been almost a month since I last went to her place, and our last parting didn't go well. I brought her a bag full of treats, but the girl seemed distant. I tried to get her to talk to me, but it was as if she were lost in her own thoughts. Mrs. Sanchez said she just needed time. I left feeling completely frustrated. Entry number 9. It seems Alicia has forgiven me. Today she was happy to see me and even hugged me when we met. We talked for a long time. I was amazed at how much wisdom this little being possesses. Not every adult understands life the way this girl does. I don't know what to do. I have become very attached to her. Maybe I should talk to Nina somehow. I can't bear to keep everything a secret. Even if she refuses to adopt, there's nothing wrong with simply knowing her. The subsequent entries describe Scott's further visits to the orphanage. Nina cried as she read all of this. She felt sorry for the girl, for her husband, and for herself. When she reached the last few notes, she found it difficult to continue. She closed the notebook and sat for a long time, trying to process the information. No, I need to finish reading until the end. So, Scott has visited this Alicia for a whole year. How could he hide all of this from me? The woman exclaimed indignantly. Wouldn't I have understood? It turns out he didn't know me very well. With trembling hands she turned the pages of the notebook to the last ones. Entry number 32. Alicia has grown noticeably. I've been visiting her for almost a year now. Today was her birthday, and I brought balloons, a cake and a bear. It was nice to see her share the cake with the other kids. Mrs. Sanchez mentioned that Alicia has become more sociable since I started visiting her. She has even made friends with several children. I wish I could give her a different gift, but unfortunately that's not possible. The more I try to hide my almost daughter from Nina, the harder it becomes to confess. When it was time to leave, Alicia grabbed onto my pants and I couldn't free my leg. She stood there crying, and I couldn't help but cry too. I was ready to take her with me and never come back, but I still haven't told anything to my wife. Entry number 33. I've decided. I've realised that Alicia has to live with us. I'm sure that Nina will love her like her own child. I could, and she would be able. Of course, it will be challenging, but we'll manage somehow. Next weekend, I'll take her to the orphanage. I already promised to bring Nina along. I need to be more decisive. That was the last entry. Nina sat in a daze, realising where they had gone on that fateful day. Oh my God. A sudden thought pierced through her mind. So Scott hasn't visited this child for over a month, and during his last visit, he promised that he would soon visit her with me. Poor girl, I can't imagine how she feels now. Nina couldn't sleep for a long time. She decided to go to the orphanage and see the girl. But how? She didn't know the address of the institution or the girl's last name. She eventually fell asleep and had a dream. Once again, she was surrounded by children, demanding to play ball with them. Then she felt a small hand tugging at the edge of her skirt. Nina looked down and saw a crying girl with pleading eyes. The girl was softly singing, but Nina couldn't remember where she had heard that tune before. She woke up in a sweat. It was still dark and the clock read 6:30 in the morning. After tossing and turning in bed for half an hour, she got up and made coffee. The hot, strong drink helped clear away the remnants of sleep. Nina was determined. She called Monica, knowing her friend would help with a plan. Nina, are you okay? Is everything all right? Do you know what time it is? It's Saturday, Monica grumbled into the phone. This is urgent, Nina replied, sounding worried. Remember I told you about the diary I found among Scott's old things? Please come over right now. It's very urgent, and only you can help me. All right, if it's that important, I'll come, Monica said, and 2 hours later she was already sitting in Nina's living room and listening to her story. She was extremely surprised by what her friend had told her. She never imagined that Scott could keep such a secret. So what do we do now? Monica asked. I don't know. All I know is that we need to find Alicia urgently. And are you going to adopt her? I don't know what I'm going to do. All I know is that the girl is all alone now. She doesn't know Scott is gone, but she's still waiting for him and me. Can you imagine what will happen to her when she realizes he's not coming back? She'll feel betrayed. I have to tell her the truth. She's just a child, Nina. Don't do anything rash. Yes, she's just a child, but I don't want her to be forever disappointed in people because of a terrible accident. She already lost her mother once, and Scott helped her through it. But now it's much more complicated. I have to help her accept reality. You know? I have to do it, if only for Scott's sake. That girl meant a lot to him, and I found this notebook and these dreams for a reason. Which dreams? You haven't mentioned anything about dreams, Monica asked, surprised, and when Nina told her everything, she added, Well, now we should definitely find that girl, if only to prevent you from going crazy. Thank you, Monica, Nina said, hugging her friend. You know what? Let's try to find this orphanage. You should remember the general direction you are heading, and we can search for all the orphanages in the city, Monica suggested, opening the laptop. Look, there aren't that many, and this is where the accident happened. Nina flinched as she looked at the point on the map that Monica had indicated. Oh, I'm sorry, darling. It's okay, Nina reassured her. Instead, let's look for orphanages located about 10 to 30 kilometers away from here. Before I fell asleep, Scott told me that it wouldn't be a long drive. About 20 minutes on the highway? Got it. Monica nodded and continued her search. Look, this place fits all the parameters. Good, Nina suddenly exclaimed. Oh, by the way, I remember the name of the principal of that orphanage, Mrs. Sanchez. Let's check the website. There should be contact information for the management. Good job remembering. Here, I found it. Helen, Mrs. Sanchez, the principal. It all adds up. Let's get ready now and go, or we'll spend ages in traffic jams. An hour later, 2 women were standing in front of the orphanage. The 2-story brick building, just as Scott had described it, looked quite decent. Behind a tall wrought iron fence stood a row of yellowed maple trees. Chrysanthemums bloomed in the flower beds and a group of children played in the colourful playground. With a pounding heart, Nina walked towards the building. What am I going to say? The woman thought. Why did I come here in the first place? Just to see the girl? I doubt she'll be happy to see me. I should have just called. But in spite of all her hesitation, Nina entered the principal's office. Behind the desk sat a plump, friendly-looking woman in a formal suit. Good morning. Sorry, I didn't call in advance. I have a delicate matter to discuss. Come in, have a seat. The principal smiled. Things are delicate around here. I don't think you'll surprise me. My name is Nina. Nina introduced herself, sitting down in a chair. Mrs. Sanchez, my husband used to come here often. Yes, he used to come to her, but he hasn't been here for about 2 months. I tried to call him, but his phone wasn't answering. It worries me that he's disappeared so suddenly. He promised Alicia he'd come. Mrs. Sanchez, my husband is not coming anymore. Nina lowered her eyes. He's dead. How? The principal splashed her hands. What happened? He died in an accident. A month and a half ago. We drove here together, but on the way, an SUV crashed into our car. I spent a lot of time in the hospital. I couldn't even go to the funeral. You know, I didn't know anything. Even when he drove me here, he didn't tell me. He wanted to surprise me. I found his diary, and there he described everything about the orphanage, about Alicia. Honestly, I don't know why I came here. When I read his notes, I was so angry that he didn't tell me anything. He thought I'd forbid him to see the girl. He and I had discussed adoption many times, but I was severe against it. I don't even know why, but I always wanted to have a child of my own. Since I realized that it was impossible, I just preferred not to think about it at all, so as not to suffer once again. But, so, I understand correctly, you want to meet Alicia. I don't know. I just wanted her to know that Scott didn't betray her. As far as I know, Alicia is a very sensitive and withdrawn girl who is very emotional. I can imagine how hard it is for her to wait for another weekend and realize that Scott didn't come again. You're right, the principal sighed. Alicia has withdrawn into herself again. She doesn't talk to anyone. She hardly eats anything. It hurts me unbearably to see her like this. Of course, a psychologist works with the girl all the time, but even a specialist can't get a word out of her. The little girl needs love. Yes, Scott wrote about it. Look, of course, I'll pass on your words to her, but I'm afraid the girl just can't take it. She has already survived the death of her mother for a year. She became very attached to Scott. I can't imagine how she'll react to the news of his death. At best, the girl just won't believe it, or will continue to wait for him. At worst... Can I see her? I'm not a psychologist, but I'd like to tell her myself, especially since this time she was waiting for me and Scott. All right, Mrs. Sanchez agreed after some thought. I will take you to her, but I beg you, be very delicate. The child is difficult. If anything, call at once. The woman left the offices, heading for the playroom on the second floor. The room was empty. It was lunchtime now and the children had gone to the dining room. "There, look," the principal whispered. "She didn't even go to lunch, sitting in her corner, poor thing. We tried to force her at one time, but it's no use. She sometimes goes to the nurse and asks for her own food. They always leave a portion for her in the kitchen. Well, go on. Call me if you need anything. The psychologist is in the next room, this door right here." "God willing," Nina sighed, and she stepped into the room. She slowly made her way towards Alicia. The girl didn't even look up. She was sitting quietly on the floor, holding a beautiful porcelain doll in her hands. "Hello," Nina said. "What a beautiful doll you have. I had one just like it when I was a child. I loved to brush her hair very much, and my mother was always swearing that I would break it." The girl didn't answer. She didn't even look at Nina, continuing to play quietly with the doll. "My doll's name was Angela. I don't know why I named her that. What's yours?" "Nina," the girl answered quietly. "Nina? That's my name too." "Really?" Alicia wondered, finally giving her companion a glance. "Yes. If you can read, I can show you my passport." "I believe so," said the girl, "and I can't read yet." "That could be easily fixed," Nina smiled. "Do you want me to teach you?" "To read?" the girl wondered. "What's the big deal? You'll have to sooner or later anyway. I can come to you. We'll read books together. Whatever you like." "I don't know," Alicia sighed. "Mrs. Morgan sometimes reads fairy tales before quiet time. Some I like. The one about Little Red Riding Hood." "That's a good fairy tale," Nina smiled. "Let's do it this way. Tomorrow I'll bring you a big book of fairy tales. Together we'll choose which one we'll start with." "Will there be pictures?" Alicia asked. She was still trying not to look at Nina, but the woman had already noticed that the girl was interested. "Of course there will be. What kind of book is a book without pictures?" "I like pictures. I even draw them myself sometimes, but I'm not very good at it." "You're just a little girl. You'll learn. When you grow up, you'll be able to draw pictures for children's books, and other kids will be happy. Wouldn't that be great?" For a while they sat in silence. Nina did not know how to start talking about Scott. "Alicia," Nina began, "why do you sit all alone? Don't you have any friends? It's more interesting to play together." "I don't need anyone," pouted the girl's lips. "They're all mean and stupid." "What do you mean?" Nina did not expect such an answer from a 5-year-old girl. "Do they hurt you here?" "No," Alicia said, shaking her head. "Everyone is friendly here, but I don't want to be with them. They make fun of me." "Why is that?" "Because no one wants me." Nina's heart ached. It was painful to hear such a despairing conclusion from a child. It can't be true that such a beautiful, intelligent girl isn't wanted by anyone. "My mum died and I was brought here. Then other adults came and played with me, laughed and then disappeared. Even Scott forgot about me." "That's it," Nina thought. The girl half mentioned him. "I can't miss this opportunity, but I have to be careful." "Who is Scott?" the woman asked softly. "He's a kind man. We were friends. He used to come on weekends bringing me toys and sweets. But I didn't really need them. I just enjoyed talking to him. He was so funny. And then he stopped coming. He didn't need me either." "Did you ever think that something might have happened? Sometimes things can happen that a person doesn't expect, and they can't control it, no matter how much they want to. I guess his wife told him not to come and see me anymore. Scott said she was nice, but I think she's mean. She's the reason he wouldn't take me away from here." Tears welled up in the girl's eyes. "Wait," Nina gently wiped away a tear on the child's cheek with her sleeve. "You shouldn't think like that. You said Scott was your friend, and friends don't lie. If he said his wife was nice, she probably was. Why would he lie to you?" "Then why doesn't he come? He forgot about me, Just like the others, he doesn't need me. Alicia sobbed openly. Honey, don't cry. She stroked the girl's head. I need to tell you something, but I need you to listen calmly. Alicia, Scott hasn't forgotten about you. He loved you very much, like his own daughter. He was going to bring you to his house, and his wife agreed. But unfortunately, he can never come to you again. He got in a car accident. He was on his way here to see you, to introduce you to his wife. But fate took a different course. How do you know? The little girl asked. Or are you deceiving me too? Alicia, Scott was my husband. I'm that mean woman who didn't want to meet you, because I was a fool. But now everything will be different. You are very dear to Scott, which means you're dear to me too. Alicia stood in complete indecision, clutching the most precious thing to her chest, a doll given by Scott. She calmly accepted the news of her friend's death, perhaps because she had already faced the death of a loved one. Dear, Nina turned to her again. I don't know if I can be a friend to you, but I would like it very much. And if you like me, I will certainly take you with me. Nina herself did not know why she said this, but these words were sincere and came from the heart. The woman did not want to deceive this girl, and if she wanted to, she would take her with her. Alicia didn't answer. Alicia, I have to go now, but I'll be back tomorrow and bring you the picture book I promised you. Okay? Alicia didn't say anything. Nina sat with her for a few more minutes, but it was time to go. She got up and walked towards the exit. Goodbye, Alicia, she said, turning around. The girl didn't even move. Nina got into the car, where Monica was waiting for her impatiently. She tiredly sank on the seat and cried. Monica, the woman said through her tears, I don't know what to do, but I want this little girl to be happy. I told her everything. That girl, she's so smart. Everything Scott wrote is true. Now I understand why he was so attached to her. And how did she react to the news of his death? Or did you not say? I told her everything, everything. Even that we went to get her and that he loved her very much. It amazes me that a child can be so stoic. She didn't even cry. She's already lost her mother a year ago. I guess that made it easier to accept the tragedy. But she's still so little and all alone out there. Why does a child have to suffer like that? It's just not fair. Why did she have to go through the death of her family? Why didn't God give me the chance to have children? Why do some people get everything and others get nothing? Have you ever thought that everything that happens is done for a reason? Monica suddenly suggested. Maybe all the events have come together so that you find each other. You both need love, so why not share it? You're a good person. If you had a child, you'd do anything to make them happy. Why don't you make this girl happy? You think? Nina looked at her friend. But I don't know. It's not that simple. What's complicated? The paperwork? I'm alone. Who's going to give me the baby? I mean, she's got to have a family. Oh, don't be ridiculous. They've been allowing single people to adopt children for a long time. The main thing is that you can provide decent conditions for her. And you can, right? You have a good job, a good apartment, and in general, you're a good person. Monica, said Nina, I don't know. I think it's only easy in theory. Okay, I have to digest all this. I promised Alicia I'd be there tomorrow. I have to buy her a picture book. And anyway, what if she doesn't accept me yet? I don't want to rush things. At home, Nina thought for a long time. She reread Scott's notes once more. It was obvious that her husband was serious and ready for responsibility. Her friend's words did not give her peace. She went on the internet to find out about the possibilities of a single woman adopting a child. There was a lot of information, and all of it was different. Nina decided to consult Mrs. Sanchez tomorrow and then, if necessary, seek help from a good lawyer. With these thoughts, she fell asleep. In the morning, Nina quickly got ready and called a cab so as not to disturb Monica. The book had been purchased in advance, so all she had to do was get to her destination. Nina quickly arrived at the orphanage and hurried to the principal's office. "Hello, Mrs. Sanchez," Nina greeted as she entered. "Oh, hello," the woman smiled. "I didn't expect you to come again." "Why not?" Nina was surprised. "I promised yesterday." "When you work in a field like mine, you learn not to believe promises," the principal sadly replied in her voice. "Anyway, that's just me. Would you like to see Alicia?" "Yes, I brought her a book, but I'd like to talk to you first, Mrs. Sanchez. I don't know if you're aware, but Scott was planning to adopt Alicia. He may not have voiced his intention, as he hasn't even discussed it with me yet. Yesterday, when I spoke to the girl, I realized why my husband was so attached to her. That little girl is unhappy, and I'm unhappy too. We've both lost someone dear to us. It's difficult to cope alone. I was thinking yesterday, I would like to adopt Alicia. Can you tell me if it's even possible?" Mrs. Sanchez closely examined Nina, her face revealing doubts. "Are you sure you want this? As far as I remember, Scott said it was you who was against it." "I was wrong. It doesn't matter if the child is mine biologically or not. It's about finding a kindred spirit. I feel that connection with this girl." "But you've only been here once." "I'm not saying I'll do it right away, especially since it's not a given that Alicia will accept me. I want to get to know her better, understand her, and give her the opportunity to get to know me." "That's the right decision. Adoption is a huge responsibility. If the child doesn't meet expectations in some way, some people give up on them. But it can be a devastating blow to their psyche. We have children who go from one family to another. I feel sorry for them. There's no such thing as a bad child. It's just that not all parents are willing to put in the effort when a child's personality doesn't match their expectations. Bonding, understanding, and accepting are hard work. Not everyone is capable of that. As for the paperwork, as long as you have a job and a place to live, there shouldn't be a problem. Marriage or being single doesn't matter anymore. Of course, it's not a quick process." "I'm willing to wait as long as it takes." "I understand. Good. Now go to see Alicia, and then we'll discuss it again." Nina went to the playroom. The girl was sitting in the same spot as yesterday. When Alicia saw Nina, she froze. She couldn't believe that this woman had come back. But sometimes it's nice to be proven wrong. "Alicia, hi!" Nina waved at her. "And I brought you something." Nina pulled a huge book out of her bag. The edition was gorgeous. She had spent a long time choosing something in the bookstore that she thought the girl would like. "Look," she sat down next to her, as promised. "These are fairy tales of all kinds, even some that I've never heard of. And the letters are big, so it will be easy for you to learn to read them." Alicia took the book that was offered to her. She turned the pages with anticipation and great care. Her eyes sparkled. "The illustrations are so beautiful. Thank you so much. I've never had such a beautiful book. And I thought you would never come again." Alicia suddenly changed the subject. "Well, honey, I'm someone who keeps her promises, especially since I really like you. It saddens me to have to think of you sitting here all alone. If you like, I'll come often. We can even go for a walk sometime. Have you ever been to the zoo?" "No. What is it?" "There are various animals there. Tigers, elephants, and camels. There are so many that I can't even remember them all. And people come to look at them." "How wonderful!" exclaimed Alicia. "I would really like to see them. I have only seen them in pictures." "Exactly. So we will definitely go. We will buy you a huge cotton candy." "But how can cotton candy be sweet?" the girl wondered. "When I get an injection, they put cotton on it. It's not sweet at all." "Honey," Nina laughed, "that's not that cotton at all. Okay, you will soon find out what it is. You will really like it." Nina started visiting Alicia regularly. As promised, she took the girl to the zoo. They also went to the circus, an amusement park, and had pony rides, among other things. Alicia loved it. She had very little laughter and joy in her life, and Nina was ready to give her an unlimited amount. Mrs. Sanchez slowly prepared the documents. She was glad that her ward had found a woman who was truly ready to become her mother. And the day came when Nina was allowed to take Alicia home for the entire weekend. On weekdays, Nina worked and came home late, so she could only spend time with the little girl on Saturdays and Sundays. On Friday evening, Nina went to the orphanage. "Well, dear," Nina hugged Alicia, "today we have a special event." "What is it?" Alicia asked with delight. "It's the surprise I told you about on Sunday. Do you want to come and visit me?" "To visit you?" The little girl's eyes widened. "Of course I do, but I'm not allowed." "Today you can," laughed Nina. "Shall we get ready? We will spend the whole weekend together and do whatever you want. Don't worry, Mrs. Sanchez let you. Otherwise I wouldn't have suggested it." "Hooray!" Alicia beamed. "Quickly, run and get ready. I'll be waiting for you downstairs." 10 minutes later, Alicia came down the stairs dressed, holding a doll in her hands and a book under her arm, the most valuable things she had. They got into a cab, and an hour later they arrived home. "Well, come in, dear. Make yourself at home." The girl stepped over the threshold and exclaimed, "How beautiful! Do you really live here?" "Yes," Nina smiled. "Come in, I'll show you around." Before Alicia's visiting, Nina transformed Scott's former study into a nursery. She changed the curtains, wallpaper, placed a small pink sofa and bought some toys. "Do you like it?" she asked the girl. "Very much," Alicia nodded. "This is your room now. When you come to visit me, you'll stay here. And if you like, we can redecorate it however you want." "I already like it," Alicia laughed joyfully. It was the first time Nina had ever heard the child laugh. She felt a warmth in her heart, and her heart raced. For several weeks, Alicia spent her weekends at Nina's. The girl had fully settled in and was no longer shy. The adoption papers were almost prepared. Nina realized that she couldn't imagine her life without this girl. Alicia felt the same way. The little girl had changed a lot during her time with Nina. She had gotten to know Monica, who spoiled her, and Sarah, who treated her with tasty pies. Initially, the news of her daughter taking in a child shocked Alicia's mother, but she soon became an active supporter. The family was getting ready for Christmas Eve. Nina was completely caught up in the pre-holiday hustle and bustle. She had already arranged for the girl to spend the entire holiday season with her. "Alicia, get ready. Let's go buy a Christmas tree." Nina woke up the girl on Sunday morning. "Hooray for the tree!" But suddenly the girl became sad. "Hey, what's wrong?" the woman worried. "It's a pity that I won't be here on Christmas. Tomorrow I'll have to go back again." Nina understood everything. In the chaos, she had forgotten to tell the little girl that they would be spending the holidays together. "Honey, smile! You're not going anywhere. We're staying together. Grandma is coming, and Monica, and even Grandpa." "Grandpa?" Alicia was afraid of Nina's father. The man seemed stern and cold, but he wasn't like that. "Do you mind?" Nina smiled. "Of course not, Mummy," Alicia exclaimed, hugging the woman.